never let that song play all the way through. Crypto After Dark. Constant Collab. Let's get it. It is it Wednesday? Tuesday, December 2nd. I can never keep up with the days. Thank you all for joining in and tuning in for another episode. Thank you for following us on Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, doing whatever you do. Really appreciate some of the feedback we've been getting. Crypto Kid, the rest of the folks who are giving us feedback, appreciate that. I'd like your input as well, so let us know what to talk about. I want to talk about things that are popular. I want to talk about things that are important to our viewers and not have any bias, right? I think there's tons of misinformation, not misinformation I would say, but a lot of hopium and a lot of crypto influencers really going outside of their knowledge base to say certain things, and I'm going to talk about that tonight. But I'm very excited tonight. I want to talk about ISO 20022, and if you're familiar with ISO frameworks, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a process champion, whether you are in supply chain, whatever your industry is, a lot of those, almost all of our industries come with ISO certificates. And we'll talk about what ISO means and what ISO is in a little bit together. So we're going to talk about ISO 20022 and the 5 cryptos that have been ISO compliant. We're going to talk about crypto influencers, and we're first going to talk about market cap, charts, all that shit, because we like to talk about that as well. So market cap today, I need to move on here to screen 2. Here we go. Market cap 2.35 trillion. So total crypto market cap chart. Let's pull that up really quick. Market cap. Here we go. So it says 2.33 trillion on this chart, whatever. Crypto cap cart. So here's the pullback that we saw last week. Went down. We dipped into the 1 trillion mark here. But I still like this structure. We'll see what happens from a market cap perspective. Trending. MetaPets, Greed. Interesting. And Taboo Token. Biggest gainers, Elon, Floki, Inu. I don't even know why I pull these up. They're just fun. Recently added, Dragon Knight, Encryptor, and ModaDAO. Those are the top 3 recently added. So let's look at the top 10. Last night we talked about Terra Luna, still there. Polkadot is in the top 10. So, a little bit higher than Chainlink in the top 21. USD coin. So we've got a couple stablecoin type projects in the top 10. Tether, Tether and Terra Luna. Luna's the native asset for Terra. If you didn't get to catch last night's episode, definitely check that out. Crypto.com still in the top 15. Shiba still hanging on. Avalanche and Polygon as to be expected. Polygon's been doing really well. We're going to talk about the Polygon chart right now, actually, because Matic said, what dip? Here's that same dip everybody participated in, and Matic is now higher than the price it was when that dip started. Touched 252 today. So Matic does not care about the dip, doesn't care about any dips. It's going to keep going up. Matic's supply is very favorable, so that's one thing to consider here as well. They have a very low supply and a low float, which makes their asset more scarce. And so if you got Matic, that's a good spot to be in. Let's take a look at I have my chat up here. Let's take a look at Matic real quick. Circulating supply 7 billion, not very many. So if you're a Matic holder, that's good. And it's certainly reason for its price appreciation during its continued adoption here. What else do we want to talk about? Shiba Inu still doing bad. Here's some of the channels. I called for buys down here. I'm glad nobody bought. Hopefully you were in Constant Collab and you sold up here. So good job for that one. XRP. We're going to talk about ISO. I'm not trying to give any of these away, but be paying attention here. XRP. XLM, right? XLM going to be talked about tonight. ALGO going to be talked about tonight. XDC going to be talked about tonight. And IOTA, which I don't have on my list actually. IOTA we're going to talk about tonight as well. So if you've been paying attention to any of these or you're owning any of these assets, hang on tight. We'll be talking about all of these. Their charts are fairly similar. I will say IOTA's price appreciation has been better. And its lows are better than XRP too. Go figure. So yeah, IOTA looks good. We'll be talking about all of these tokens tonight. So let's talk about ISO standards. So if you're not familiar with ISO standards are internationally agreed by experts. Okay, so think of them as a formula that describes the best way of doing something. It could be about making a product, managing a process, delivering a service, supplying materials. Standards cover a huge range of activities. So this ISO framework is sort of the best and one of the highest tier boards for these different frameworks. Standards are the distilled wisdom of people with expertise in their subject matter and who know the needs of the organizations they represent. People such as manufacturers, sellers, buyers, customers, trade associations, users, or regulators. For instance, quality management standards, environmental management standards, health and safety standards, energy management standards, food safety standards, IT security standards, and more. So here's ISO 13216 related to your kid's car seat, right? ISO goes over a plethora of different categories. These frameworks pull in the highest ranking officials and members from each of their subject matter expertises, with all due respect. And they contribute to all of the sustainable development goals: no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, etc., you name it. So this is the ISO framework standards. I wanted to bring these up just in case you were not familiar with ISO yet or what that is. I know a lot of people work in industries where ISO is highly regarded and or complied with on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. And so those are just quickly some items I wanted to bring up about ISO before we get really into this show, because I cannot stress enough about how important some of the information I'm going to go over tonight is. None of this is financial advice or anything that you can't research on your own, but a lot of people in crypto have forgotten all about ISO. It's very clear. It's very clear that everybody has gotten amassed with the FUD. There's tens of thousands of coins now. Nobody can keep their pants in their seat. And a lot of things I'm going to talk about tonight are important as to why we need to make sure we're understanding why we're even participating in these markets to begin with, okay? So this is from 2020, and I just wanted to point out this article before we continue. The down low on digital currency. Okay, so everybody's heard about Bitcoin. It was the first cryptocurrency to go mainstream, but others are fast growing in popularity. And this is funny. There could be more than 1,800 different types of cryptocurrencies in existence. That was January of last year. I mean, if you go through this coin market cap website right now, there's going to be a lot more than 1,800. I'll give you that. So how do we ensure digital currencies are safe? ISO Focus picks its way amid the confusion to find out more. So this article is going through ISO's backings and projects that are going to be talking about formulating the future, I should say. So crypto rising. ISO already has a standard for real currency, which is 4217. We're going to talk about that for a minute. This has been in use since 1978. And it lists currency codes based on World Bank verification. So ISO 4217 is already sort of like the card catalog or the library system for language utilized in the international currency market between these banks. Certain banks have certain names and algorithm or acronyms associated with them. You cannot use these acronyms or associations, etc. So now they're like, wow, however, digital currency is expanding faster than these codes can cope with. The ISO 4217 standard can allocate around 500 three-digit codes, yet digital currencies are being created and used on lines with thousands of separate versions. So they're like, hold up, we have a database management problem here. We have a big problem. So this is what this article is starting to go into and talk about here, as it relates to what's ahead for digital IDs, fraud, and the cryptocurrency market. And this is from Elizabeth Gasurowski Denise from the ISO Focus. So I just wanted to point out ISO and some of the things that they've been trending on over the course of, the last market cycle or so, and what they've been preparing us for. Okay, so let's move into ISO 2022. And I realize I don't have a Google article open on it right now, but I just want to show everybody how easy this is to Google. ISO 2022, very easy to Google. A single standardization approach, methodology, process, repository, all three, to be used by all financial standards initiatives. So you have a whole website you can go through here on what ISO 2022 is, what it's trying to do. But if you go back, what does ISO 2022 mean? It's an ISO standard for electronic data interchange between financial institutions. It describes a metadata repository containing descriptions of messages and business processes and a maintenance process for the repository content. Okay? So what's the difference between SWIFT and ISO 2022? ISO 2022 messaging will allow for data-rich transmissions not previously possible with legacy formats. So if you're not familiar with SWIFT, we are using the SWIFT banking system, or at least moving from it, but we were using the SWIFT banking system in all aspects of the way we conduct transactions between banks, financial intermediaries, etc. For if you're watching this and you're over 18 for the most of your life, right? And so when Bitcoin was founded, we started transitioning some of these ledgers and networks to a point where in 2017 or 2018, you were probably utilizing Zelle or Venmo and getting your money a lot faster, using these instant transfer services. You're like, how am I doing that? This doesn't make any sense. Well, in reality, some of the banks and institutions that we were all utilizing were starting to participate in some of these structural changes, which are signified by this shift from switch to ISO. Okay. ISO 222 is what I should say, because I'm pretty sure SWIFT is its own ISO standard. Anyway, these are some of the natural progressions we've been seeing. So let's talk a little bit further. ISO for crypto. Which cryptos are ISO compliant and can be used by banks? This is very important. This is some of the most important stuff I've ever talked about. I'm not an advisor, but as it relates to sharing information, this is core foundations on why the cryptocurrency revolution is even happening. It's one of the major focal points of the crypto movement, is this international payment system that is literally running on rusted train tracks from a railroad perspective. What purposes do ISO standards serve? What is ISO 4217? We've talked about that. I want to talk about that for a second. Digital token identifiers. What is ISO 2022? And what would make a crypto ISO compliant? I'm going to scroll through this very quickly. What purpose do ISO standards serve? So we talked about this when we talked about ISO standards up here. ISO aims to promote international trade and protect end users by ensuring the products being made are safe and acceptable quality. There's over 20,000 standards. We are now on 20,022. Okay. In some cases, ISO is used to describe products that are built according to a certain standard. What is ISO 4217? This standard has been used for global bank systems and stock markets since 1978. If a bank user transfers another bank user 500 USD, they would automatically be using standards decided by ISO 4217 currency code that defines the US dollar as USD. Aside from currency codes, ISO also assigns international securities identification numbers. So this is literally just like a ledger system. It's like a card catalog. If you went to a public library in the late 1990s or early 2000s, you had to flip through a bunch of index cards to figure out where your books were. It's literally a data repository. And that's no different from where we're heading now. Okay? So usually the first two letters are the alphabetic country code from ISO 366, and the last letter is derived from the currency name. So we have US dollars, EU is European Union, and then R is for Euro, whatever. They didn't want to call it EUE at the time, I guess. I don't know. Hong Kong dollar, Swiss franc, so Switzerland franc, Japan yen, similar. So let's talk about how crypto is starting to conflict with these. And don't forget about gold, XAU, and silver being XAG. And it talks about Bitcoin. BT is a conflict for ISO 4217 because BT stands for Bhutan. Ethereum. ET stands for Ethiopia. Bitcoin Cash. The European Unit of Account 9. Solana. Solana is the official currency of Peru. ISO 17 code for the official currency of Peru. So we have all of these sort of conflicts already arising from crypto and the existing ISO structures, which to me are a tad bit concerning for those cryptos they're explicitly listing and any others who have confliction with previous standards. Which is why I like the ones that start with X, because not a lot of countries or anything starts with X. Okay? So what is ISO 20022? This standard will set a new standard of communication for all financial institutions worldwide. The 2022 standard will completely change the financial landscape and improve international money transfers. Europe will transition to ISO 2022 towards the end of 2022, and the US will implement in 2023. Cryptos that update their blockchains to comply with this new ISO standard will likely appreciate in price if they are chosen for payments by banks. The new ISO standard will be used for global payments, message exchanges, trading, and other activities. It defines changes such as encoding data in XLM format and new digital token identifiers, which comprises of 37 of the world's largest financial players, including XRP. Ripple's vice president claims that Ripple already complies with ISO 2022. Let's open up this tab. Oh, baby. What would make crypto ISO compliant? You can read more about this one. I gotta get excited here. So here's what makes cryptos ISO compliant. I'm going to skip articles before I read Ripple's ISO 2022 crypto list. I just moved into 5 compliant names that will benefit as Fed adopts new format. I don't know. I mean, I just can't read anything more clear. Unless we live in a web of lies and nothing we read is true. Here's 5 cryptos various experts have noted that are compliant with ISO 2022. Ripple, XDC, Stellar Lumens, IOTA, and Algorand. We've been talking a lot about some of those pairs. And I realize that Ripple and Stellar Lumens and XDC and IOTA really haven't done damage as it relates to a Luna or an Axie Infinity or some of these that have just completely skyrocketed, but just hold on to your britches. Because when this goes through the roof, there will be nothing we can do to stop the price from going up. And yes, there will be retracing. And I don't know when it's going to happen. And I'm going to get to that a little bit later in this show as well. But this is huge. This is very big information as it relates to this. This is not new either. Okay, so we clicked on this link here. Ripple already complies with ISO 2022. So according to a press release that came out on Monday of later in October of this month, the U.S. Federal Reserve spread the word that all Fed banks are going to implement ISO 2022 system for Fed wire fund services. Oh my gosh. Hello. Fed-based real-time payments to run on the new standard. The new format of messaging allows for the enhancement of real-time payments both at home and across border. I mean, we've read enough about Ripple. I don't need to say anything about it. I'm not going to say it's going up tomorrow. I'm not going to say when the case is ending. I'm not even going to say that the SEC case will go well and it'll go up immediately. But the SEC is fighting international framework standards. The rest of the world already thinks XRP is not a currency. So, you know, how much more do we need to read? Right? So that's what I really wanted to point out about ISO 2022. So ISO 22 migration is not mandatory, but those do not act now risk being excluded from international payment systems. It's literally saying get on board or don't participate. I mean, this is huge. This is big information. So ISO 22 replacing. It's known as placing the Swift ledger. What is the difference between ISO 1522 and 2022? The main difference is that the two messages are more versatile and less tied to specific formats. So they're trying to make sure there's versatile formats so that when new cryptos come in or any new ledger technology system that fits its framework needs to come in, we can totally get it in there. I mean, I could talk about this for days. For days. So this is the main reason why we've been talking about these 5 cryptos. It's a reason why it's a good idea to buy them, in my opinion, not by financial advice, because you'll be participating in a new ISO framework through ownership of those cryptos. That's the reason why you would buy them. You're participating in an ISO framework, and that's pretty powerful to do from an equity perspective, in my opinion. Again, ISO standards are internationally agreed by experts. So basically, by buying those currencies that are ISO compliant, you're just agreeing with experts. You're agreeing with big banks, central banks, institutions, and you're not listening to some Twitter guy talking about a Shiba Inu or whatever. Okay? So the last thing I wanted to talk about today is crypto influencers. And I realized that this channel could be summoned by the crypto influencer community as a crypto influencing channel. But I try to be very clear with my biases. I don't know when things are going to go up. I don't know if they'll go up all the time. I try to make that clear when I'm talking about different pairs or different situations. But I will say that there's been a lot of FUD out there from the crypto community. And one of them is from Ben Armstrong. And Ben Armstrong is the founder of BitBoy Crypto. It's one of the biggest crypto communities out there right now. I don't dislike Ben or anybody for any reason, but I will say that some of the behavior I've been seeing recently is a little bit challenging. You know, I'd say cringy, but that's a little bit too cringy of a word here. No pun intended. But I just want to watch this video for a second, and then we'll talk about it after.
There is not a single coin out there, and hear me on this, there's not one coin out there that exists that is more undervalued than XRP is at this time right now, and your time is running out to load up, because it will be mooning very, very, very soon. If Bitcoin starts running, it will start running. It'll get back over that $1.35 hump, heading back towards $2, and then before you know it, it's going to be too late, and you're going to have missed out. So where's my XRP army? Drop it in the chat. Or the X up. There is not a single coin out
First
there.
of all, do not throw the X up. Am I being a hater? Throw the X up? Like, yeah, I just think in a lot of cases, folks like this who have a large following group are really tying in investors into situations that they may not be prepared for. And in this case, saying XRP is going to go up really soon. Do you know how many people have been saying XRP is going to go up really soon? We're not buying XRP for it to go up really soon. And that's why I didn't sell it at $1.90. I've been talking about what I could have done better in May with myself and some of my peers personally, you know, selling in May or doing whatever, sure. But the truth is I bought 2 of my 3 biggest holdings were in ISO compliant standards at the time. You know, it's now 1 and 3, not 1 and 2, but XRP is my first biggest holding, and XLM is my, I guess, 4th now, actually. So the reason why I bought those 2 is because of that ISO standard. XDC is good too, ALGO is good, IOTA is good too. These are ISO compliant and looking to solve real world problems with banks. So I understand crypto is going to unbank yourself. I understand. I get it. We're all going to decentralize, overthrow the government, whatever you want to say. I'm not necessarily against all of your initiatives. But the reality is it's going to take time. And it's not going to happen overnight. And so all of the shilling against XRP, what if they lawsuit this, that's never going anywhere, blah, blah. It's literally compliant with the best standard of framework that exists. And that's the point I wanted to make tonight. And comments like this about
back over that $1.35
going very soon, very soon.
And right now, when your time is running out to load up, because it will be mooning very, very, very soon.
Very soon. Sure, it could. I hope he's right. I'm not hating on his call. I'm just saying that, like, that's not healthy to constantly talk about that. If you want my opinion, you should just be buying more every 2 weeks and closing your eyes. That's not financial advice either. But anyway, those are the things I really wanted to talk about on tonight's show. ISO 2022 is real. I highly encourage you to Google it and do your own research on ISO 2020, on ISO frameworks in general. Keep checking out articles. How will it impact the financial industry? Everybody's talking about it. Common language model for payments data, higher quality data translates to better quality and faster payments for everyone involved. I mean, I could talk about this forever, but I'm not going to. So with that being said, thank you all for joining Crypto After Dark. It's really been a pleasure to do this one. Short, sweet, and to the point. Let's talk about ISO 2022 more in the Constant Collab Telegram chat. Let's talk more in Instagram. Talk more on Twitter. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what you think about ISO 2022 and banks continuing into the future. And we will catch you next time on Crypto After Dark. So thank you very much.